The reading this morning is Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12. For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to divide the soul and the spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. David, come preach the word.
Good morning. Just real quick to know who I'm talking to, just indicate with your hands, like, who are aimers here? Okay. Welcome. Thank you for being here. SIBI students, welcome. Thank you for being here. Staff, faculty, welcome. Thank you for being here. Friends, family, everyone else? All right, good. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So I feel connected to this place. In New Zealand, part of our culture is we might have it's called a pepeha, and you introduce yourself in relation to the land. You name the closest mountain, the closest body of water. How did you translate pepeha?
I tried to spell it.
Perfect. And there's multiple reasons, but they culturally find identity based on the place. The place has affected you. The people have affected you. This space has affected me. I have a legacy here. My connection began before I was born. My parents came here in the 70s as AIM students. That's where they met. They went to New Zealand, fell in love with each other, fell in love with the country. After they finished in New Zealand, they came back to Lubbock and went through the school of preaching here. That's why I was born, while they were studying here. And when they graduated, moved back to New Zealand. I didn't ever think I'd end up coming back through here, but then in early 2000s, a young lady named Olivia Martin at the time came with the AIM program to New Zealand. So we met in New Zealand, and when she finished and came back, I came back with her. And I didn't intend to when I came here, but I ended up coming through the SIBI as well. My plan was to go back to New Zealand. That's what I felt home was. God had a different plan. Olivia and I were married here. And then when she graduated from LCU, when I graduated from SIBI, we joined a team with other families and went to Kharkiv, Ukraine, to do church planting. And we were there from 2008 to 2014. And then in 2015, my wife and I went back to New Zealand, and that's where I'm serving presently. But I feel connected to this place. I just wanted to share that. This is special. Just give me a show of hands. Who has served in the military? Okay, good. So you might identify with bits of what I'm going to share with you this morning. I don't have a study. I don't have a text we're going to dissect. I have a story. I find explaining things, informing, it's not unimportant, but I feel like story is powerful. We connect with story in a way that is powerful. And I want to share a story that was powerful to me. It's a true story, something I experienced this last year. A few years ago, a good friend of mine, his name is Elijah Peters. He was a graduate. He was an aimer here as well, and a graduate of SIBI. He moved to New Zealand with his family and with the team to do church planting. And several years ago, just some transitions in his ministry, he ended up joining the New Zealand Army as a chaplain. And as he went through that training and came out of it, he just told me, David, you should try this, you'll love it. So I explored, looked into it a bit more. Last year, I enlisted. I signed up as a chaplain with the New Zealand Army as well. So I had to go through boot camp and shave your head and everything like that as well. Very much a humbling experience, but a good experience. One, it was a physically challenging situation. It's something that, I could see, where are my limits? Can I push past them? Can I grow and develop? But it also afforded me some extra access to some circles of people who desperately need Jesus that I didn't have access to before. It offered some space to do some upskilling and training that would be beneficial to my ministry. And it definitely has given a lot of illustrations for sermons and lessons as well. So this story that I'm going to share with you this morning is something that happened to me while I was temporarily posted in one of the camps in New Zealand, and just a scenario that impacted me. I had gone through my training at the beginning of the year. So you learn a lot, but you don't actually know the job until you start doing the job. As much as you can learn and need to learn in your training, it's when you get on the ground and start doing the work that really you grasp and understand to a greater capacity what you're there for. So I went through my training at the beginning of the year. Later in the year, I went to this camp for a temporary posting to support one of the units there. And there was another chaplain in camp. By the way, chaplains are called padres most of the time. So the title is chaplain, but usually when people talk to you, they say, oh, padre, I need to talk to you. Padre, can you help me? Padre, can I have a lolly? Candy. We pass out lots of sweets as well. So I got to this camp, still new, and I was really going to lean on this other chaplain to kind of show me the ropes. If I had anything I didn't know what to do, I'd go to him for advice. He'd kind of guide me through it and better learn. So I'm there, and then a few days into it, in the morning, I have a sit down with a lady. She's a SAPRA, which stands for Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Advisor. And they do anything that's related to sexual assault, discrimination, anything like that. It's a touchy subject. So they have a specialist that comes in to advise command, inform people how to not, cross the lines of what's appropriate and inappropriate in the workplace, and which happens a lot. So she came in the morning and just told me, hey, Padre, I just want to give you a heads up. You have a few people in your unit that are under investigation for sexual assault. And so you might need to be there for support. I was like, okay. Into the deep end, for sure. And then went to lunch. Actually, after that, then while I was at lunch, I got a message from the other chaplain in camp, hey, David, I need to have a word with you. I was like, okay. So after lunch, I go down and what's going on? Just want to let you know the medical officer told me that I have to go on mandatory medical leave for 10 days. So you're in charge of the whole camp. It's like, okay, definitely into the deep end. But God brought me here. He knows what he's doing, right? I don't know what I'm doing, but he knows what he's doing. So that was okay. Of course, I'm there. And if needed, there's people I could call for advice, support, for help. A couple hours later, the unit that I was attached to was going to go on deployment on a foreign exercise. And as part of that exercise, there was other numbers from another unit coming to supplement. And so they have a function to kind of get to know each other, to interact kind of thing. So we're there at this function, and while I'm sitting there, the chief instructor of Army Command School, and I'm going to try not to say names and refer to names of units, so I probably shouldn't have said that since it is live streamed. He came in, grabbed my shoulder, Padre, I need to talk to you. So, okay. So he pulls me into this office with in the camp, there's the commander, and then under him is 2 lieutenant colonels, and both of them in the room, and the regimental sergeant majors are in the room, and then another soldier's in the room. Padre, something's happening. We just need your advice. Sit down. It's like, these are top dogs, and I feel very intimidated for sure. And they shared with me a situation. One of the soldiers said, I just got a text message from another soldier. He found out. He's angry. He raped me. This soldier and another soldier were working together, developed kind of a relationship together, started sleeping together. Well, she was married to another soldier who was on deployment at the time. Sadly, this is a common scenario in the military with deployments and that. So this soldier's sharing the message. He didn't know what to do. He freaked out. And what's protocols? You go to your one-up. You go to someone and you inform them this is happening. So it went up the chain, up to the COs of the unit, and they called me in. This is the scenario. Padre, what do you advise? Oh, okay. I don't think I should be advising. What would I do in a normal situation? Okay, well, we need to go there. We need to remove her from danger if she's in danger still, and we need to, support and find out what's happening. So myself and the RSM, we went to her house where she was. The RSM was a female, if it makes just a picture of the situation. And she and I went to her house. He was called in by a CO for a meeting, so he came into camp. And something that's unique about the military that you probably won't, you definitely won't get in your church ministry is because of the leadership structure, the higher-ups can command and enforce that you obey their instruction. Like, you can't do that when you're working with volunteers so much. But so they commanded, you are to return to camp. You are to separate for 72 hours. And so the decision was, we went to her. She was wasted. Like, she realized earlier in the day that someone was going to tell her husband about the affair. She freaked out. So to fix the problem, she decided to drink and drink and drink and drink. And like, that does not fix the problem whatsoever. So she's drunk. He comes home. Of course, they're not going to resolve this and communicate and converse and work through this in a healthy way. So things went bad. They were separated. We had someone come in to support with her. Police were going to come and talk to her. The SAPRA that I referred to earlier, she was going to come in and lead like this investigation. My role was to be support for them. The next day, in talking to both soldiers, finding out what do you want, they wanted to talk. They wanted to work through things. So I told the CEO of the unit, hey, these two want to get together and talk. Is that a possibility? And not comfortable, he doesn't want to take any risk that they might come together and something violent happen, that he would be liable for because he allowed it to happen. They said, Padre, if you think it's okay, then okay. I just want you to be present when they talk. So I think it'll be okay. I'll be there. So that day, they got to come back together and talk. It was very awkward being in the room with them. And it was, of course, it's an awkward situation, but they were just like, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have sent that message. I shouldn't have told them. I wish they'd leave us alone. I wish we could work through this on our own. I love you. I miss you. I can't wait that we can just be back together. It was peaceful. They expressed their regret for how things have gone on, and they wanted to work through and get back together. It was good conversation. It was a short one. I said, okay. So separated. The next day, they wanted to talk again. The 72 hours hadn't happened yet, so they weren't allowed to be back together. They were still commanded to be apart. So I asked the CEO, hey, it was a good conversation yesterday. Can they talk again? He goes, Padre, if you're going to be there and you think it's okay, then I'm fine with it. So I said, I do think it's okay. So we came back together into this office, and it started out, okay, I love you. I miss you. But then it kind of shifted. I wish you didn't do this. I wish you had, and they started accusing each other. It was your fault. You did this wrong. And all of a sudden, this conversation just started like catching fire and becoming more volatile. And I didn't want to insert myself. I thought my presence there was to just inhibit any violence. But this conversation was spiraling out of control, and there was no way it was going to come to a healthy point. And so I said, hey, I'm sorry, excuse me. Like, it sounds like you guys are just having a hard time working through some of the things that you're dealing with. Do you mind if I just help you navigate a conversation? Sure, Padre. I've done a little bit of reading on conflict management, and I've had some experience helping people work through some issues. So I felt pretty good that I can help, bring in some of these communication tools to help them have a healthy conversation. So did some things like said, one of the soldiers, can you share what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and like make sure the other one doesn't interrupt. And I shared, this is how I'm feeling. Okay. Now to the other soldier, what did you hear her saying? And it started out going, well, I heard her saying this, and is that what you meant to communicate? No, I actually meant this. And just help them hear each other, understand each other. And it started out okay, but then all of a sudden it just stopped working, and I didn't know how to bring it back in. It came back to, you slept with, you did this, you raped me, you hurt me, you informed, you told. And I felt like I was standing with a fire extinguisher in front of a forest fire. Like it was just this massive, volatile conversation. And I had just stepped into this, and I just thought, I don't know what to do. I don't have the skills to help them with the way that they need to be helped. What do I do? God, I don't know what to do. I don't want to cause more damage to this relationship that's already there. I don't see how I can help. Can you help me? And I just had some clarity. I was like, okay, I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychologist. Even though I've dabbled in and had some experience in conflict resolution, I don't have those skills. But I had other things to offer into the situation. So I kind of rudely interrupted them. I said, I'm sorry, I'm gonna kill this conversation. And I apologize. I thought I might be able to help you navigate a healthy conversation, a constructive conversation, just to work through some of the things that you're carrying. But I don't. You need some skills that are more professional than are mine. So I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a counselor. I'm just a chaplain. I'm a Christian chaplain. Do you mind if I just share with you a Christian view of marriage? And they said, sure, Padre. So marriage is very important to Christians. It's something that we hold in high regard and we protect and we value. And the Bible tells us a lot about relationship, about marriage. Can I share with you some scriptures that talk about marriage? Sure, Padre. It says one of the apostles, Paul, he wrote this beautiful letter to a church, and he talked about a relationship between a husband and a wife. He says, wives, submit to your husbands. When I said that, submit, like her face just went like, what? And I said, I know, submit, like that's a word that some people have problems with, which I kind of found funny because they're both soldiers, and submission is a big part of the leadership structure within the military. But it's not as comfortable in a relationship. And I think it's because that idea, and there's been a lot of experience with abuse of that dynamic in a relationship. And I said, I know submission, like that's a hard concept. But I don't think Paul was calling wives to like lower themselves, to humiliate themselves, to put themselves as unimportant, insignificant. I think the appeal was stronger than that. I think instead of just thinking the woman has to become less than, I think her role is to lift her husband up, to champion him, that his agenda might be her agenda, his success might be her success, that what he aims to do, she wants to help him achieve it. And then Paul goes on and he talks about husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And that was a sacrificial love. He sacrifices himself. He puts himself second to her wife. And it says he presents his wife as beautiful, as perfect, as spotless, without blemish, something that people can look at and adore and appreciate. That's his job. I just wonder in your marriage, like, how do you champion your husband? How do you put him first in your relationship? And how do you pedestal your wife? How do you help her to look beautiful to the world and the people that see her? Well, I know that like in the morning, he makes sure I have everything together before I go out the door so I don't show up to work without all my stuff. And I know she makes sure like when I come home, like our fridge has food in it and she has a plan for dinner and takes care of us like this. And they start that all of a sudden this like explosive, volatile forest fire just transformed into a conversation that we're looking at each other through a new lens. Not the lens of, you're my enemy, you're my opponent, you hurt me, you wronged me. I need to be compensated in some way, at least by your admitting to fault. And then it changed to, I see you, I appreciate you, I love you, I want to do better for you. In this conversation, they just started talking about what they appreciate in each other, what they love about each other, what they would like to do better for each other. And I said, thank you guys so much. Thank you for the honor of being part of this conversation. I think it's a good place to end. But I want to give you some advice. You are dealing with some heavy things, and you do need some professional help to help navigate those heavy things. So when you find yourself, if you're talking, and all of a sudden you start getting into this conversation, just stop it, and maybe come back to our conversation, and just start thinking of the good things, the beautiful things, the things you love and appreciate about each other. So we ended there. A couple of weeks ago, one of the soldiers came up to me, Padre, I remembered what you said in the conversation. They're still together. They did get help. They're working through things. I'm not going to say they have a perfect marriage or anything like that, but they were able to work through those things. And then the feedback I got is, Padre, what you said, that helped us. The truth is, David didn't do anything. What David tried to do wasn't enough. It's not what they needed. I don't have an explanation. I don't have a text I'm going to dissect and explain. I just have a story that I wanted to share with you because it impacted me. It reminded me of something, and it's going to be an encouragement for you. You're here in this place to fill your minds with God's word. Do it. Learn as much as you can. Understand as much as you can. But you're also here to fill your heart with God's word, so you feel how beautiful, how good his word is. I want you to fill your entire being with his word, so that in whatever situation you find yourself in, it can flow out of you. Read books. Find skills that'll help benefit your ministry. Communication, conflict resolution, coaching, encouraging. Find those things. They can be useful. But just remember, none of them will be more useful or more powerful than the wisdom of God as he shared with us and teaches us through his scripture. I want to leave you with that. Thank you for sharing time with me this morning.